Hello, Rainer. Thank you for joining us. So
Hello.
You've come fresh from your the opening panel debate at TradeTech this year, and a really good cut and thrust start to the year. We're talking about the role and impact of capital markets on society and economic and political impact. A really meaty topic. What were the key points that you thought were being brought up and the key discussion topics?
I think we as an industry have to probably focus less on our particular details and business models, but more on what benefit we bring for the real economy. I think equity markets will be crucially important as a financing instrument, especially in the next few years for the industry as a whole. And I think there's a lot of questions that we as an industry are being asked right now in terms of our value to society, in terms of our value for capital financing, risk transfer, etc. And I think those answers we need to provide in a credible way.
So what we're saying really is that the banking sector needs to rebuild that confidence, and at the moment perhaps it's not doing that because we're so bogged down in trying to actually fix the problems. We're not necessarily explaining them in the right way to both the regulators and to the wider world in general. Absolutely,
we've seen a lot of changes with MiFID, for example, fragmentation of markets, and high frequency trading has become more of the norm in Europe. I think all of those changes are in principle positive, but they've of course led to a strong change in market structure that not everybody understands. I think there's also some regulatory intervention probably necessary. I think rules around high frequency trading are right, but high frequency trading in my mind is also something that contributes very much to liquidity today to optimally and efficiently process information in a very speedy and efficient way. That's good. But I think we need to make that clear to policymakers, to the public in general, and also to investors and corporates.
Why do you think though there's that disconnect? Because I know that often when we have people like Kay Swinburne sitting there at these TradeTech panels saying, we want you to come forward, we want you to speak to us, and then equally you have the people on the industry side saying, we've got all these things we want you to do. There seems to be a point where the messages aren't being passed one way and the other. Why do we think that is?
I think we as a financial industry always seem to understand how to express things extremely complex. And at the end of the day, it is probably the very easy task how to bring an investor together with a company and how to do that in the best and most efficient way. I think the terminology we use about that, and also if you look at the lengthy regulation around that and the various regulations discussed in Brussels, etc., we've understood as an industry to sometimes make it very, very complex. And I think getting that back to the basics and really explaining to the company and to the investor why this is a useful process, forming a price that is efficient, transparent, and neutral, and really letting them transfer the risk and capital at that price is really the ultimate thing that we do. And I think we need to be better able as an industry to explain why we do that efficiently.
Are we maybe in a danger, not just of over-regulation, but regulations being used as a political tool? Because there seems to be a lot of people talking about there's not just too much regulation, but it's a knee-jerk reaction to those people that are shouting the loudest about what they don't like without necessarily understanding it fully. Yes, this goes back to what you were just saying about not explaining in the right kind of detail, but could it also be the problem that it is being used politically rather than to control the markets the way it should?
I mean, certainly there's always a search of scapegoats when something is going wrong, and I think over-regulation is definitely a threat in financial markets as well. I think the financial crisis has shown that we need different regulation, that we need to tighten regulation in certain areas. A lot of that has been happening in the last few years, a lot of that is on the way. I think that's right and good. But at the same time, we need to be mindful not to over-regulate and to actually endanger the very purpose of markets to do that efficient capital financing. So I think it is a balance to be struck. Certainly, policymakers very often today see the public argument more than maybe the prudent regulation of financial market. That is something where we need to do a lot of explanation why this can be a dangerous road for Europe.
Are you overall optimistic or pessimistic that these regulations are ultimately going to be beneficial?
I think we may see some over-regulation certainly in some parts, and I think past crises have shown that that does happen in any country in the world. So I'm not too confident that we're going to achieve a completely ideal scenario, but I think wherever there will be over-regulation, we have to work hard as an industry to do the job to explain and to get it back to a new normal. Definitely changes are necessary, so I think we need to all work with policymakers and explain them what's right.
So finally then, with MiFID due for 2013 and EMIR now very much in the public eye, how do you see the picture of the market structure changing over the next 12 to 18 months?
I think overall we're addressing the right problems. And so MiFID has been a good success for Europe. I think there are some deficiencies. We're trying to correct them with MiFID II and MiFIR. I think certainly creating a European market probably is more necessary today than it ever was, because governments and banks will be less able to provide the financing function to the economy. In that sense, I think we as a financial market have a larger role to fill in the upcoming years. And I think in that sense, the regulatory agenda is right. It may sometimes go a little bit too far.
Well, thank you very much, Rainer, for your time. It's been a pleasure. And of course, enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you.